Good afternoon and welcome to the Town of Riverhead Planning Board. Today is Thursday, June 15th, 2023. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we do not have any public hearings today, so we're going to move on to our discussion items. And our first item is with Heather Trojanowski, Dish 5G at Fresh Pond Avenue.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, Heather Trojanowski, site plan reviewer. And do we have a representative from Dish Wireless here? No? Okay, good me. I am the Dish Wireless representative now. So before us, the planning department has received and reviewed a site plan application to modify and upgrade an existing public utility wireless communications facility for Dish Wireless. The proposed modifications will be made to an existing 1,390 square foot public utility wireless communications facility, which is improved with a 123-foot tall monopole within a leased area of a parcel located on the east side of Fresh Pond Avenue within the APZ zoning use district, more particularly identified as Suffolk County Tax Map number 600-78-2-1. The proposed action is unlisted pursuant to SECRA, with coordinated review being optional and not recommended. Staff recommends that the planning board issue a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA, as the proposed action is not anticipated to result in significant negative environmental impacts. Assuming that everyone looked over my staff report, the proposed work, scope of work to the existing wireless communications facility on the site plan consists of the co-location of 3 panel antennas at 114 feet, 1 new antenna mount, 6 RRUs, 1 OVP, and 1 hybrid cable. Ground level work includes 1 new equipment cabinet for Dish Wireless, 1 5x7 metal platform, a PPC cabinet, and a GPS unit. The RF EME report that was submitted with the application analyze the potential RF exposure at the site from the proposed Dish Wireless communications equipment and a worst case modeling for all other carriers on the existing tower. The report stated that the maximum cumulative RF exposure levels from all existing and proposed antennas at the site will be 3.6% of the MPE limits established by the FCC and 0.7% of the occupational standard. So the site with the proposed modifications will continue to be in compliance with all applicable FCC limits as designed. We also received a structural analysis report stamped by G. Lance Cook, who's a professional engineer, and it analyzed the structural integrity of the existing tower and determined that the tower structure and foundation will have sufficient capacity to carry the proposed loading configuration, and no modifications are required. We also received a mount analysis report prepared by Theodore Nitescu and signed and stamped by Cliff Abernathy, who is a professional engineer. And the report determined that the installation of 1 new CommScope platform mount will be required in order to handle the new antennas. So I'm recommending that the planning board classify the action as unlisted pursuant to SECRA, issue a negative declaration, and grant administrative site plan approval for the site plan application for Dish 5G at Fresh Pond, with the condition that the CommScope mount be installed per the approved plans, and then prior to the issuance of a CFC, the new platform mount has to be a post-construction analysis of said mounting platform needs to be performed by a licensed professional engineer. And no generators are proposed under this application.
Okay. Sure do a good job. Cover everything.
Sorry, it's a little fast. But any questions?
Nope. All right, thank you. Did we get an update on that today? Okay. We are going to still stay with Heather and Lepora Residence, Bungalow E-8, Chapter 219.
Doesn't look like we have anyone here for that application, so I'll just jump right into it.
Many hats today.
So the planning department has received and reviewed a Chapter 219 coastal erosion hazard line permit application seeking approval to relocate an existing residence onto a new foundation landward of the existing home location. They are going to remove the existing foundation and deck and then also install a new sanitary system. The proposed action is unlisted pursuant to SECRA, with coordinator review being optional and not recommended. Staff recommends that the planning board assume lead agency and issue a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA. The site location is at 3010 Post Landing Road. I'm sure some of you are aware, it's Oakwood on the Sound Seasonal Community, which is a 21.29 acre parcel, more particularly described as Suffolk County Tax Number 600-37-1-1 within the Residence B80 zoning use district, and the site in particular is Bungalow E8, also known as number 84 within the site. As you can see from the pictures in my staff report, the bungalow itself is extremely close to the existing top of the bluff, which is further out than the actual CHA line is. So unfortunately, they're going to need relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals and its authority as the Coastal Erosion Hazard Board of Appeals, because even though they're moving the structure landward of the toe of the bluff and retreating from the top of the bluff, they're still going to be doing work within the coastal erosion hazard area. So that's why I wanted to get this on for a resolution to do unlisted pursuant to SECRA and issue a negative declaration so that they can continue the process with the Zoning Board of Appeals for that relief. As far as the specifics of the proposed construction, they are constructing a new foundation 35.4 feet from the top of the bluff, which is 26.7 feet from the existing CHA line. Again, they're demolishing the existing foundation and deck that currently intersects the CHA line. And then they're relocating the bungalow itself onto the new foundation. The sanitary system proposed to be installed will be connected to both cabins E8 and E9, which is the cabin just to the west. I tried to show that in my staff report pictures as well. And new water service lines are going to serve both cabins. But there are no actual alterations or construction proposed for that other cabin. It's just E8.
Question on the sanitary.
Sure.
Is this one of the new, like, micro plants, or is it, is it a traditional
I think,
septic system?
so
or
they
is it-
did get approval from the health department. And unfortunately, the design professional isn't here to answer specifics. But I'd imagine it would have to be one of the newer approved systems. It's not gonna be a traditional cesspool that, because the health department doesn't wanna see that anymore.
Right.
And I think that's why it's serving 2 cabins, just because of the capacity, the number of bedrooms for the new systems tends to be anywhere from 4 to 6 bedrooms, so that's why they're tying it into 2 bungalows.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And just a couple of notes that I made during a site inspection last week. Obviously the existing site conditions are very, very steep along the front of the house. So as you're going down that one-way drive, the hill, the topography steeps downward. And I didn't see, there was no curving, and I didn't see any visible like drainage in the road. So just a couple of things that I had mentioned to the design professional that obviously, they want to make sure they contain their stormwater runoff. So silt fencing, all of that stuff will need to be shown on a revised site plan. There's also a 4-foot retaining wall on the western side of the driveway where the existing bungalow is. And when you remove that, you're putting a new foundation in. Obviously, there's going to have to be some soil moved around, and I just want to make sure that none of it's going to be going over the face of the bluff. It's not going to be running down the private drive that's in there. But we wanted to get them to zoning board first so they can get the necessary relief, and then we'll come back to the planning board. So other than that, if you had any other questions, like I said, they already have their health department approval. I did send this over to our consulting engineer for comments, just in case, he notes anything. So once I receive those, I'll forward it to both the applicant, their design professional, and you as well. Oakwood on the Sound is a private community, so they will need permission to do the proposed construction. They had a permit that was issued back in 2014, but it subsequently expired in 2015, so they'll need to get a new permit. I believe it was for the same type of construction, so I don't foresee anything holding them up in that respect. So at this point, I have a resolution on just to classify SECRA and issue the negative declaration to move them forward.
Sounds good. All right, you good, George?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Heather. All right, now we have Matt Charters for Venezia Square.
To have Chick Voorhees here, he's the applicant's representative, who would like to join me at the table. We're going out the hallway.
Chick-fil-A.
Yes, sure. All right, so, some of the board might recall this application's kind of been around for a little while. From what I could find, the first iteration was back in like 2007. The last time the board viewed it was in 2015. It is just to the east of the Rothwell Funeral Home in Wading River on 25A, just south of Dogwood Drive, about 800 feet to the west of the Wading River Manor Road 25A intersection. So this is a site plan application for about 27,000 square foot of retail within two 10,000 square foot buildings and one 7,000 square foot building, a 4,000 square foot bank with a drive-through, and then a 6,000 square foot building containing a 3,000 square foot 76 foot restaurant and two 1,500 square foot takeout restaurants with 16 seats each. All the proposed buildings are listed as being single-story with no basements. The project includes two curb cuts, with the western curb cut aligned with Dogwood Drive, being utilized for ingress and egress, and is indicated as being served by a new traffic signal. And the eastern curb cut is being utilized for eastbound egress only onto 25A. There's 174 parking stalls shown, landscaping, et cetera. So this is just over a 6-acre site, just as I said, on 25A. It's in the rural neighborhood business zoning use district. A lot of commercial uses in the area. There are some residents abutting to the south. I did include a few photos in the in the staff report. Right now, the site's largely wooded. It's an exceptional field environment. In terms of seeker, this is a type 1 because there's more than 50 parking spaces. I did identify in the report involved agencies that we will need to coordinate with before making a secret determination, and also two interested agencies. Nelson Cook Employees has prepared an expanded environmental assessment form, which I did share with the board electronically. I have hard copies as well that I can get you guys if anyone wants a physical copy of it. It's quite dense. It goes through everything in a lot of detail. I have a resolution today to classify this as a type 1 and initiate secret coordination for lead agency. And then just moving on through the report, I thought it was important, just due to the scale of this, to really do a good zoning analysis of the business CR zone. So that's what you see starting on page 4. It kind of goes through all the criteria of the zone. I don't want to, bore the board to death with this, but the applicant did a good job with meeting the intent of the code. There's some tweaks in here that need to be done, but for the most part, this code section calls for, campus-style cluster developments, which they largely did with a central square element in the middle, with kind of everything facing that square. So they've done a pretty good job in that regard. So I kind of want to glance over that section a little bit. Nothing really substantial needs to be changed, just some items of note. They do not show cross-access to the parcel to the west. It's probably a good idea. Our town, the comprehensive plan update for the Wading River corridor did recommend that all parcels within the zone get connected via cross-access, because I know at one time the town was exploring a sort of like a frontage road that kind of went away, so it's more about cross-access. And also, another item of note is loading zones. There's a lot of retail in here. There doesn't seem to be like clear areas where they may take deliveries and stuff like that.
That's the two things I remember about this. One was the cross-access,
And loading
the
zones?
second one was the street.
It was the street.
It was
Yeah.
supposed to be a street, but
Correct.
A street put into it?
yeah.
Yeah, they were going to have a frontage road just south of 25A that would connect all these businesses. That was the initial recommendation from going back into the 80s, but then the town got away from that.
Wow.
Yep. So I'm just going to kind of move on to the parking section of this. They do meet the parking requirements of the code. 27 stalls for the bank, 108 stalls for the retail, 36 stalls for the restaurant. for a total of 174 stalls. This is mostly 90-degree parking stalls with some angled parking for the bank. They meet their requirements for ADA. Now on to some bigger stuff is traffic and access and cross-access, which I already talked about. Traffic is kind of the big issue on this project. They are proposing, as I said, a traffic light on 25A at Dogwood Drive. So obviously they'll need the approval of DOT and the Highway Department as Dogwood's a town road. And then we also received a TIS for this project with several revisions, which are contained in the expanded EAF. The updated traffic impact statement was from 2018, and we got a revision in 2022, and then a final level of service analysis in 2023. The reports do recommend some mitigation to improve traffic in the area, and the town is aware that that light is somewhat of a problem. There seems to be a lot of traffic, back up. So they're proposing to change signal timings as part of this. Obviously, the DOT would have to approve, and I'm recommending that we retain a traffic consultant, which I also have a resolution prepared for today, just to look at their traffic study to make sure any mitigation that they're doing is good, essentially.
Do you know how far away the next traffic light is if you're headed west?
I
It's
think
quite
it
a
would be.
ways, right?
Is it the school that's the next one?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. So that's gotta be at least a mile.
Quick question, Matt.
Yes.
I see, I'm looking at your overhead shot of
Yep,
the landscape, and it says to remain natural.
yep,
And if you look at your overhead shot, it's pretty light towards the back, especially the east end.
yeah, which in kind of the zoning analysis, I did recommend that might be an opportunity to supplement.
Yeah.
With some pine barren species, because this is in the compatible growth area, which is the next section of this report, which limits clearing to 65%.
Right.
They're just about at the limit. They did have to make an application to Central Pine Barrens, because this is what's considered a DRS, a Development of Regional Significance, because of the traffic impact. So basically, if your development causes the traffic level to go essentially 2 levels down, it's considered a DRS, so they have to do that application with Pine Barrens.
Right, but as far as the landscaping in the southern eastern portion of the
Yeah.
lot, so they'll supplement?
Supplement that, yeah,
Okay.
and I made that recommendation.
Okay, very good, thank you.
As I said, they're currently before the Pine Barrens. They filed an application on February 8th of 2023. Had a public hearing on April 19th, and I don't believe a decision has been issued yet, but they do largely conform to the Pine Barrens standards, which are in our code, and it's a separate, obviously, requirement of the Pine Barrens.
Is the parcel going to be fenced?
I believe so, yes, I think at the limit of clearing, if I'm correct. Is there going to be a fence check?
We have Dale here as well.
No, we weren't proposing a fence.
Okay. It's something we could consider.
Yeah.
At the limit of clearing to make sure that they do not go over. Other than that, outdoor lighting, plan mostly looks good. This will need to go to ARB, obviously. I did email you all some conceptual site plan elevations, some minor tweaks that need to be made with that just to meet the definition of the code, just breaking up the facade with some more architectural features. This will need a SWIP. Water District did offer some comments that they just need more detail. It seems like it's just lacking a few things that they need to do to provide some additional comments. This is referred to the Health Department because this is outside of the sewer district, so this will be the newer IA systems. Other than that, we are looking to start the secret process and retain a consultant for traffic. That's a lot,
Okay.
all at once. This has been going on for a long time.
Concise.
Yes.
It is a very long time.
Anybody have
Okay,
any
I think we
questions?
can start the secret process.
Yeah, no problem.
Good.
Just a few remarks, if we could.
Sure.
I'm Chick Voorhees with Nelson Pope Voorhees, and as Matt said, we prepared the expanded environmental assessment. Stephen Schneider prepared the traffic study. That was also part of the expanded, as Matt indicated. Dale Koch, which you know well from Bowler Engineering, is the site engineer. We did have the opportunity to review the staff report in advance. Looked at all of the recommendations. We're pleased to see that in most cases it met the various standards. There were a couple indicating it partially met the standard. Really all of them are things that we can look at and make some modifications, most of which were pretty minor. The one that gives us a little bit of trouble is the cross-access to the west. You'll see that we have cross-access to the east, and that's great, and it's proposed on the plan. To the west would tie into the existing funeral home, and we just had some concerns about compatibility, burdens on this property, if there are funeral processions, or things of that nature traversing between the sites. I certainly understand from a planning standpoint, it's a good recommendation, but I'm just not sure how practical it is here. And the second part of that is that our current plan in front of the Plan Variance Commission does not show it, but even if we show 2 lines that are theoretical and may or may not be built in the future, it counts against our clearing, and it would give us some trouble with meeting the clearing requirement without some pretty major changes to the plan. So I would just ask for some moderation on that, and we'll give that explanation, and also make the other changes just in terms of landscaping or facing the courtyard, or some of the reorientation, loading zones. We know we already have more than enough parking, and Dale has evaluated the plan, and we can provide the loading zones. But I'd ask for your further re-review of that one item with cross-access to the west, which is an existing business.
What is the problem with it?
I think connecting through would encourage potentially funeral processions to go through the site of this particular site plan, and it also gives us difficulty with meeting the clearing requirements, because even if we don't construct it, we have to count it as cleared area.
I mean, I think the board could consider that. No decision absolutely has to be made right at this moment. There are other options, and improvements could be reduced to accommodate, additional open space area, and then to account for that area that would be clear or future clear. So if there's options, I think we could address it as we go through the process.
All right. We still
And I
have
saw the
time for
resolutions
that.
3 and 4 coming up. That's great to start seeker. We appreciate that. And we're fully in agreement that having the town have their own consultant review the traffic study makes a great deal of sense. So we'll look forward to continuing the review process, coming here again, and we appreciate the opportunity for the discussion item today.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time today. All right. We have Greg Bergman with 1309 OCR Automobile Dealership.
How many people do we have? Yeah, I think we might. Just watch the, you got microphones on the table there that you can't cover.
Greg, can we just start with the gentleman next to you and get everyone's name before we
For the
begin?
record.
Yeah, do we need one more chair for the gentleman in the back?
There's one. Is there a guy?
Yeah, slide down. Okay. Feel a little outnumbered. Jeez.
We could
All
bring
right,
in
so
a
yeah,
band and
if
have
we
a
could just
party.
start from my left, just make some introductions for the board and for the record. Spell your last name for you.
Adonai McCormick, dealer principal. Last name is spelled McCormack.
Craig Ugrin, last name Ugrin. I'm with Dennis Auto Group, Chief Strategy Officer.
Keith Buda, B-U-D-A. I'm also with Dennis Auto Group.
Kevin Bolger, B-U-L-G-E-R, Trillo Architects.
Anthony Stankinelli, Bernices Engineering, S-T-A-N-C-A-N-E-L-L-I.
Amanda LaRosa, L-A-R-O-S-A, Stonefield Engineering.
Chris Kent,
Easy.
Referral first.
Attorney for the firm.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And for the record, I'm Greg Bergman, planner for the town of Riverhead. So what we have before us is a site plan application seeking approval to redevelop an existing commercial site and construct a new 18,000 square foot automobile dealership with service and repair areas, parking, lighting, landscaping, drainage, and new water and sanitary sewer connections. Proposed action is a type 1 action pursuant to SECRA as it proposes parking stalls in excess of 50 stalls. So I do have a resolution on before you tonight to classify that and circulate a lead agency request on the board's behalf. My staff report did indicate the traffic impact statement that was indicated on the full EAF. The applicant did provide that to me yesterday afternoon. I won't go into the details of the TIS too much yet. I just haven't had a time to really wrap my head around it and just kind of go back and forth. But that has been submitted, so that will be included in the SECRA coordination packets. The project site's located at 1309 Old Country Road on the south side of Old Country Road, approximately 200 feet east of the intersection of Osborne Avenue and 58. Property has approximately 216 feet of frontage on 58 and approximately 389 feet of frontage on Osborne Avenue. Project site is located within the Business Center Zoning Use District, as well as within the boundaries of both the Riverhead Sewer District and the Water District. And in terms of use, the new automobile dealerships are permitted use within the BC zoning district. The site right now is presently improved with 3 buildings, all of which are slated to be demolished in order to redevelop the site. The site's currently accessed on County Route 58 by a wide depressed curb cut, while Osborne Avenue has no curbing along the frontage, and it's sort of unrestricted access. The property shares its western property boundary with a 0.23 acre parcel containing a Citgo gas station, shares a portion of its eastern property boundary proximate to 58 with Rocco's Pizza and Pasta, while the remainder of the property's eastern boundary is shared with 6 single-family residential parcels which are located on Woodcrest Avenue. As submitted, the plan currently does require 6 variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. They require a impervious surface coverage variance. Maximum permitted is 75%. They're proposing 77.7. They are proposing, code requires a minimum unoccupied front yard of 35 feet. They are proposing an unoccupied area of 17 feet on County Route 58 and a 15-foot unoccupied area on Osborne Avenue. Proposed non-disturbed transitional side yard adjoining residential districts. Minimum required is 45.6 feet, minimum required is 50 feet, they're proposing 45.6. Just for the board's reference, that's on the southern end of the property, which is adjacent to the beer distributor. The proposed non-disturbed transitional rear yard adjoining residential properties, minimum required is 50 feet, they're proposing 10 feet. Now that is along the rear, the eastern property boundary shared with those 6 residential parcels on Woodcrest Avenue. Proposed number of parking stalls is 45 based on the size of the building and the use. The minimum required is 60. And the proposed front yard setbacks for freestanding signs is 5 feet on both Osborne and 58. Minimum required is 15. So, when you look at each of these variances individually, they may not appear significant, but when you look at them in its entirety, specifically that 50-foot non-disturbed rear yard with the residential properties, they do kind of add up to really create a significant intensity of use on the subject property. Just speaking to a couple of them, the parking stalls. So when you have a use by our town code that requires 60, they're providing 45 parking stalls based on the site plan. That's not including the stacked parking stalls both on Osborne and the south side of the property, and those will be for new vehicle storage, as well as vehicles in for service. So that's a pretty significant variance of a 15 stall reduction. And if you take into account future cross-access to the west, they would reduce that number by 3. We'll get into the cross-access at some point. It's worthy of discussion on this property. And then really the non-disturbed rear yard along the eastern property boundary with those single-family residences, said code requires 50. They're providing 10 with some landscaping buffers and fencing. It is a significant reduction in the required buffer. Now, while the existing vegetative buffer, I put a couple of pictures in the report, not particularly attractive or maintained at this point, but there's really also no activity currently taking place in that portion of the property directly adjacent to those residences. When you look at Figure 7, you can sort of see no activity, it's just vegetation, so it gives the people some buffer and screening of noise from Osborne Avenue, as well as activity through the rest of the site. So, I mean, if that goes away, now you've got drive aisles, you've got lighting, you've got dumpster enclosures on the back, so there will be more noise, there will be more activity. You will have truck vehicle deliveries, so it's gonna surely impact those neighboring properties. And then again, coupled, the impervious service coverage of 2,500 square feet when they're really not even able to meet the required parking for the use. Access to the site is going to be taken from Old Country Road. It appears to be a right-in, right-out on Old Country Road, and a new full-motion stop-controlled curb cut is proposed on Osborne Avenue. Customers exiting the site to head westbound on Old Country Road would come out of Osborne and utilize the light to go west onto 58. The site plan does provide what appear to be 24 aisles of stacked vehicle parking, both along Osborne Avenue and the southern property frontage. I'm assuming those are just going to be new vehicles that are sort of just stacked in. One of the things that the applicant's going to need to really demonstrate to the board is how this site's going to operate on a daily basis. If someone wants to go test drive that Mazda that's buried, 3 or 4 deep in, they're going to have to move 3 or 4 cars and kind of shuffle around the site. I won't go through the individual landscaping, but they do provide an attractive landscaping plan. All of the exterior lighting they are proposing 18 pole-mounted lighting fixtures as well as 18 wall-mount lighting fixtures. They're all LED. They all comply with the maximum mounting height. The plans do note that they're 4,000 degree Kelvin. Town code requires a maximum of 3,000 degree Kelvin. That's a simple change that can be made by the applicant. But other than that, the photometric plans does not appear to indicate any light trespass onto neighboring properties. Cross-access plan, so the plan does provide future cross-access to both the east and the west. The Rocco's Pizza and Pasta is located directly to the east. I think that would be an appropriate future cross-access. The one to the west, I would kind of leave up to the board's discretion. In the event, there is the gas station on the corner does have access on both Osborne and 58. In the event someone needed to exit the dealership and go to the gas station, they could really exit out on Osborne Avenue and go out. So leave it to the board's discretion. The future cross-access on the west might not be entirely necessary. And again, if they're already going to be short parking, if that future cross-access would eliminate more parking, might not necessarily be appropriate.
So would you say that the greater amount of noise that will be brought into the surrounding neighborhood would obviously be on 58 and Osborne as opposed to the rear of the building that faces the 6 homes? I don't see any doors back there, so I have to guess.
Yeah, so the access doors for the service area are on the western portion of the building, and then they've got the exit on the south. Again, they did provide a truck turning plan. So depending on where those vehicle deliveries are taking place, if they're coming around the building. The traffic is one way off of 58, so if someone were to come in off of 58, they'd make a right into the site. They can only travel southbound along that eastern side of the building. There was no noise study. That's not something we really contemplated. But again, just the site will be busier.
My only reason for the question is normally service starts at 7, right? So I'm just worrying about people in the 6 houses, being disturbed that early in the morning, but it normally starts at 7. So what you're saying is it's going to be on the other side of the building. So the building in and of itself should take care of most of the noise.
Yeah, so if I'm correct, the vehicles coming in for service would come in on the west side of the building. There's a little canopy, like a vehicle drop-off area, so someone would come into the site, drop their vehicle off on that west side, enter through the west side of the building to the access, and exit through the south. So, yeah, the traffic impact study that they submitted did sort of color code the spots. So these spots on the eastern side of the building are identified in that plan to be employee parking. So it'd be assumed that people coming in to work in the morning would park there. So that would sort of be the limit of the noise early in the morning. They did provide a vehicle and truck turning plan that did identify the capability to provide for safe vehicular movement throughout the site for both a fire truck as well as for a vehicle delivery truck. One thing that we see along 58, I mean, I've seen it numerous times, the vehicle delivery trucks stop right in the middle of 58 and they offload vehicles
In the turning lane.
right in the turn lane. That's something we definitely don't want to see on this site, so they did demonstrate ability to maneuver a car delivery truck throughout the site.
I'm concerned with how many variances they're going for on this. It kind of shows that this is bigger than it should be for this particular property. I mean, I would love to see the property cleaned up and something there, but I don't, this amount of variance is required. You're asking for, where is it? Along the residential districts, 10 feet when there's a minimum of 50 required. That's a lot, you know, when, as Greg did say, if you break these down individually, it is going to have a very big impact on this property. And I think that it will definitely affect these homes to the east of this. It just seems like too much.
To that point, if I could, Chris Kent from Crawford. This building is actually located further from the property line than the existing buildings are located. What's within the 10 feet from the property line is a drive aisle. And as Mr. Monero pointed out, this is just a drive aisle. There's no access to the building on this side, other than maybe a door up by the showroom. But this is just a drive aisle. So the activity is going to be limited on this side. Most of the activity will be on the west side of the building, and that's where you'll have your noise. We are going to plant large trees along the eastern boundary, probably a better buffer than what exists. If you look on page 6 of the staff report, the bottom photo, you can see that this side is almost completely cleared, other than some trees along the southeastern side of the property. The buildings extend closer to the boundary line, as you can see in that photo, than what we're proposing. And it'll be much of an improvement from what's there now. And we can schedule, I think we can schedule the car deliveries at a certain times. They're not 24/7, I don't think. What time you know what time your car deliveries are generally?
I can speak for that. Adnan McCormick, dealer principal. The way we have it currently set up, the majority of our business is done through preliminary appointments. So we know what a customer is coming in on prior to them arriving at the dealership, and we have that car readily available. We also provide valet service. So with having that, if at any point in time a customer is requesting for a certain vehicle to be moved or test driven, we do have on-site valet service where someone will be readily available to move vehicles and place them back immediately.
And when the cars are delivered by large trucks brought to the site,
Right.
is that done at a certain time of the day, or?
We currently have it set up with our other stores in which we get a list and a time sent to us from the driver. They give us normally a 3-hour window of we will arrive between 1 or 3, so we prepare for it based off of them reaching out to us via email or via phone call.
1, 3 in the afternoon?
Correct.
So this isn't early morning delivery of cars, this is middle of the day. And the site is designed so that the large trucks that are delivering the vehicles can come right into the site to offload the vehicles.
Is this a new car dealership? Are these electric vehicles?
Part of them. All factory or OEMs.
So the
as we call
majority
them.
of them electric
Majority,
vehicles?
and more every year. Their product portfolio is more hybrid, more electric.
So is this a mixed-use company, or is it?
No, I'm just concerned about the fire department. They might say that they looked at this.
I mean, I referred it to the fire marshal. You know, I don't know that the fire marshal gets into types of vehicles that are stored on site. I mean, it is, can you disclose the dealership that you're planning for this location?
It's one of the existing dealerships, so there's currently 3 dealerships. There were 4, but now there's 3 dealerships across the street. One of the dealerships is moving from the north side to the south side. So now there'll only be 2 dealerships on the north and 1 on the south. So it's not a new dealership It's a relocation of an existing dealership.
So is that going to leave a vacant building?
No, there's still two buildings across the street, and those buildings will each be dedicated to one car dealership.
Okay.
Is the property in the sewer district?
Yes, it's going to be connected to sewer. In fact, we're also providing an easement for Rocco's to connect to sewer also.
So we did get some comments from the Riverhead Water District, we got comments from the Sewer District. One thing that I need to get clarification on, the Sewer District indicated to me that they were waiting for plans for pre-treatment details for an oil-water separator and for a sand-grit separator to accommodate an interior car wash for the applicant's own use. I just want to make sure that if the Riverhead Water District, you make sure those plans, because right now the floor plans don't indicate any kind of like car wash bay. One, we just want to make sure that this is not going to be open to the public. You know, again, I have no problem with, you know, a car dealership cleaning and maintaining their own vehicles, but, you know, I want to make sure that this is not going to be a full-service car wash. And I just want to make sure that that's kind of accurately accounted for in the Riverhead Water District's study. We did get comments from the town engineer. I did refer the plans to the fire marshal, the Suffolk County DPW, and the planning commission. We're waiting on comments back from them. So in the meantime, we do have a, like I said, secret resolution on to initiate lead agency review among involved agencies. And again, I would recommend to just have, pursuant to town code, we can retain a consultant on behalf of the planning board to review the traffic impact study, just to make sure that there's nothing we're missing. You know, I'm not a professional traffic engineer. Board is not. So I want to make sure that we're not missing anything just in terms of potential impacts. You know, if access from westbound traffic is going to be, you know, right now the access on 58 is right in, right out. So in my mind, more vehicles are now going to be trying to make a left onto Osborne from 58 right now. There is no left turn arrow there, so I don't know if that's going to have any sort of impact. I didn't really see that was kind of touched on in the traffic impact study. So I would recommend, similar to the last application that Matt spoke about, that we have an outside consultant to just review that to make sure we're not missing it.
Yeah, as some of the board members pointed out, we are concerned about the neighbors in the back, so make sure that we're impressed when we see the landscaping plan, and be mindful of the neighbors that live there.
All right.
Board have any other questions?
No. Good? All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Greg, let's move on to Overlook Home Major Subdivision.
All right, so this is just a very brief update on a subdivision that's been kicking around with the planning board now for a number of years. Back in August of 2021, the planning board granted approval for a major subdivision called Overlook Homes. This is seeking to create 4 new residential building lots from an existing 7.7 acre parcel. The reason this was a major subdivision was because it was sort of a minor on top of a minor. So it was, the board did grant approval in August of 2021. The applicant just received health department approval from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services at the beginning of June. Pursuant to New York town law, subdivision approvals granted by the planning board are valid for 180 days. So what we just have here is an extension of the subdivision approval. All the facts and conditions around the subdivision are the same as they were when it was approved. So this is just an extension of approval. This is sort of
Extension of final approval.
correct. And the planning board's done this a number of times. Again, the facts and circumstances are the same. This is, the application has in no way changed or been modified. It's just that it took them nearly 2 years to get approval from the health department. So we received it. We do have a resolution on to grant an extension of approval. That way, Joanne, you can sign the maps and they can get this thing wrapped up.
Sure, okay. Everybody happy?
Yeah.
Okay. And let's go on to Calverton Camelot Berman Subdivision Comprehensive Development Plan.
All right, so I'm bringing up Dawn on this one as backup. So this is, as as most of the board is probably aware, I know a couple of you guys were on the board, and you were on the town board, the Berman subdivision, AKA the Calverton Camelot subdivision, was a subdivision back in the mid-2000s, which subdivided the existing Grumman, the industrial core of the EPCAL property. It was sort of done, there was like a lot of reverse engineering that went into this subdivision. Lots were sort of chopped up and deeded off without, subdivision approval. So the planning board and the town of Riverhead really went through a lot of great effort to get this property subdivided. One of the main components of that subdivision was called it was an October 2004 Comprehensive Development Plan, which was prepared by Cameron Engineering Associates LP, which is attached to the memo that I just distributed. The Comprehensive Development Plan allowed for a total FAR of 0.15 over the entire subdivision, which equated to approximately 3.2 million square feet of maximum potential development, including existing development and proposed within the industrial core. So I did include for the board's reference a copy of the table of dimensional regulations from that subdivision. Basically, the board kind of shifted around, it didn't establish just like what we're used to with traditional zoning, where you have a FAR of, whatever it is, 0.4, lot coverage, impervious coverage. Everything was sort of tailored to factor in what was already there and kind of give some room for expansion. In some cases, it didn't really leave any room for expansion. It sort of said what was there. In some cases, it can be allowed to be there. So the CDP states on page 9, so there were 2 out parcels within that subdivision. Out parcel 1, which is a 20.5 acre parcel of land, which is located now at 901 Berman Boulevard. That's the Riley Architectural on the Old Castle site. That's the first, when you come in off of Middle Country Road into the EPCAL interior core, that's that first building on the right that has the control tower as well on top. The other out parcel was a 9.6 acre parcel of land retained by the U.S. Navy. Now it's to be retained by the Navy until remediation activities were completed. Now, the CDP states that, quote, out parcel 1 was a separate lot created during the minor subdivision and is not part of the current subdivision application. That's on page 9 of the Comprehensive Development Plan. It goes further on to state that, quote, since these 2 out parcels are part of the total property purchased by Calverton Camelot, they are included in the CDP analysis. They are not included in the major subdivision application. So now you've got those 2 statements which really sort of explicitly state that these 2 out parcels are not part of the subdivision application. Nonetheless, they ended up on the EPCAL, the Berman subdivision. They ended up on those dimensional regulation charts, again, giving them sort of a fixed amount of development on that site. Now, the town is currently in receipt of a site plan application on 901 Berman Boulevard, which is seeking approval to construct an 84,000 square foot warehouse. On page 2 of the memo, I did just clip a quick aerial from Near Maps. Shows the existing layout of the site, the existing configuration. That box in blue is the approximate location of the proposed warehouse. I mean, again, this is a warehouse. It's over an existing, this site has been completely, developed previously, completely disturbed. So right now, the planning department's sort of in a position where we're unable to process this application, for lack of a better phrase. The Zoning Board of Appeals right now is not a body that has the authority to grant variances. Like it's not traditional zoning where you can go, you have dimensional regulations, you have a zoning code, you can go to a zoning board to seek relief. Right now, the zoning board does not have the authority to grant any relief from this dimensional chart. So what we're here, and this is again very preliminary, we're not coming to the board right now with any, seeking any resolution, we're not asking you to take action, just asking you to consider the fact that we have what I call conflicting information within this comprehensive development plan, where it says, on the one hand, these 2 parcels are not part of the subdivision application, and yet somehow they end up on the chart and are really restricted. Now, on the one end, the board's heard consistently, we hear consistently through the comp plan update, the community meetings, stuff like this should go in EPCAL, Again, based on the site, this is the appropriate spot for it within the town. So just here to sort of get the pulse of the board to see if there's a way that we can do this legally and amend, sort of, I guess, correct the record and remove out parcel 1 from these dimensional regulations. It would at least provide a path to be able to process the application.
Right, we don't have any authority at EPCAL, that's under the town board's.
Well, under site plan review, because it's in an urban renewal area, site plan review falls under the town board's jurisdiction. But the plan, what we're here really talking about is the Berman subdivision. So the planning board approved that subdivision, so the planning board would be the body vested with the authority to do any type of amendment to that. Again, I just, when you see language, and again, I was not here in 2004, so I cannot speak to how it happened, but you have conflicting information where it says explicitly, these are not part of the subdivision application, and then you have a map which includes them. And, again, it really, when we say EPCAL is where the industrial development should go, you've got these dimensional regulations, which again, there was a lot of heavy DEC involvement, there was Pine Barrens involvement, so there were a lot of agencies that went into crafting this map. But when you look at it, it sort of binds the potential of the industrial core, which was really, the purpose of it was for industrial development, build the tax base, build commercial development, job creation. It sort of really ties the hands, and we've taken a lot of calls within the EPCAL core, and it's like, well, sorry, kind of what you have is what you can get. It's almost to a point where you have successful businesses, and they need to expand, they need room to grow, and it's very restrictive. So this
Fix
year,
it, Greg.
again, that's what we're trying. We're not trying to, trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. We're not trying, but I've tried to dig into them. Again, it's not clear how this ended up. So, again, just here to get the board's
That's
pulse.
helpful.
Yeah, not looking to take an action, just getting the pulse on. If the board would be amenable, if there's a way to do it where we could remove. And again, I'm not talking about the entire subdivision. I'm just talking about out parcel 1. So this would not affect the remaining, 480 acres of that industrial core. It's this 20.5 acre piece that we have one site plan application on.
I feel good about that.
There's a lot of great businesses in here. Most of them have been here since we
Yeah.
owned the property and we were actually licensing the buildings. Ed will remember licensing the buildings to them, and they're all doing well, looking to get bigger, employ more people, create more tax revenue. And as Greg said, the whole objective of this was to really redevelop that area, recreate the jobs and tax base, and it's, highly disturbed, as we know.
Great
It's
spot
not a
for
pristine
warehouses.
area by any stretch of the imagination, so.
So it seems like the board's amenable. Again, Eileen, Dawn, myself, we're gonna really dig in. If it was a hard no, I wouldn't spin our wheels and kind of, just waste our time, but I think it's worthy of us really trying to dig down and see how we can
Absolutely.
do this.
If it's an anomaly that happened, it happens.
Right.
And we did, and I think Greg touched on it briefly, if you remember, the way the subdivision happened was that the applicant originally went in and deeded off all the parcels without subdivision approval. So we were backing into that map to make it work, because it was just the most expeditious way to do it, and we really wanted to move that forward as fast as possible. So a lot of things were happening quickly, and, that's the way things go.
I wonder how they approved all of that. You know what I mean, when you go for a title?
Well, technically, yeah, so it was interesting, because technically, it's illegal to do. Technically, there's a New York State law at the time, and I haven't looked at it recently, precluded you from doing. There was actually a fine associated with deeding off the parcels without the subdivision, and
You said it went quickly? That's the only thing to EPCAL that ever went quickly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then what was even more interesting was the subdivision was not compromised, but like complicated in large part because the entire site was always used as one parcel. So the steam plant, the water, the sewer, all those easements between the parcels had to be created because they didn't need them in the beginning. It was one piece. So it was very interesting thing to do.
It's still interesting.
It's still interesting, and it will probably continue to be interesting.
And I mean, those easements, not, again, it's for the town board, for the site plan jurisdiction. There are water easements on this property, you know, so, but that's for the town board to consider. What we're really just here for the board, for the planning board, like I said, is looking at the dimensional regulations for this one out parcel, which, again, try to figure out, I'll try to understand how it could end up there, but.
Very interesting.
I'm okay with one. I only have just one question. Two, they want to split up into two and possibly sell off a piece of two. I know that that's not in there, but if when we're doing this, why don't we make sure that we cover that one?
You mean do
Because you
another
have
split?
the second parcel, it says that they may want to split off. I've already read that. They may want to split off a part of that for another development. That's what I read.
That's in the CDP?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I haven't really touched on that. I'm just
But just,
touching on, yeah.
I'm just saying it's okay, but just
Yeah.
allow for it so we're not back here again doing the same thing.
All right, I've got the direction from the board. I think we can at least work on our end to, maybe try to work to some end to effectuate this.
Good.
All right.
All right. Thank goodness she brought you back up.
You know, we've got the institutional knowledge of, you know, Dawn was here, so, yeah, it's just, I'm very glad that we have someone I'm not just floating out here on my island.
Good. All right, thank you, Greg and Dawn. All right, let's move on to public comments on the resolutions. Would anyone like to come up and leave a comment?
Good afternoon, my name is George Bartunek. I'm on, live in Calverton. The discussion that you had previously about the automobile dealership and the restaurant next door kind of settled where we're going for supper. I'm speaking about the resolution tonight, 2023-046 Riverhead Cider House Patio and Tasting Room Expansion. Although Resolution 2023-046 does reference the fact that the cider house is located within the town's agricultural protection zone, an additional whereas to the resolution should be inserted to emphasize that the current uses of the building do not comply with either the permitted uses or the specially permitted uses in the APZ as defined in Article 6 of the Town Code. Resolution 2016, this is several years ago, 24, effectively allowed for the establishment of a non-conforming use in the agricultural protection zone that had a very tenuous connection to the use permit issued in 2012 that allowed, unquote, agricultural processing and warehouse use on the subject property. The resolution now before the Planning Board for consideration is asking you to allow for the further expansion of what already is a non-conforming use. Resolution 2023-46 should also state in the whereas section that by approving this resolution, the Planning Board is essentially acknowledging that the cider house will be granted permission to operate as a catering facility in spite of any prior conditions. It is absurd that the applicant is even suggesting that the approval of the wine storage area is needed for additional tasting room space. Anyone who has visited the cider house quickly realizes that the main revenue of the establishment is not from the incidental tasting of apple cider. Resolution 2023-46 states that all previous conditions of approval and filed covenants remain in effect, in full force and effect. How would it be possible for the town to enforce the conditions of the resolution before you tonight, this afternoon, when the applicant has a history of flagrant disregard for the conditions of the 2016 resolution? During the public hearing of April 6, I presented an observation made by the town's new comprehensive plan summary report that, quote, "Many farms and wineries have begun catering operations for events and weddings. Sometimes newer expanded kitchens have been built to support these auxiliary uses. These uses generate impacts that are not anticipated, such as traffic, noise, and enforcement concerns," unquote. During that same hearing, there were a few individuals who did express support for the cider house operation, but I do not recall that any of those individuals, including the attorney representing Mr. King, made a good case for the expansion of this non-conforming business. It is the task of this planning board, respectfully, to find a compromise that is as beneficial to the community as well as take into consideration the rights of the property owner. The resolution of 2016 accomplished that compromise. No one is asking the town to shut down or even limit the current cider house operation. But what is being asked of this board is that the preservation of Sound Avenue as a historic and scenic corridor take precedence over the proposed expansion of a business that is not suited for the town's agricultural protection zone. Thank you very much. Let's save Sound Avenue. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Mike Foley, Reeves Park, speaking in opposition to the cider house resolution. We've been here a lot. We've been here since 2014 while this continuing creeping of violations of covenants has continued. Since this resolution has come up, just before this, the Bating Howell Farm Vineyard filed an application for a 6,048 square foot tasting barn that during the public hearing, there were questions asked of the owner, and the owner was honest. And when a question was asked, might this be used for a wedding reception? The owner said, I'm not planning on it, but it's possible. So I really felt at that time that he was already tipping his hand, that without asking for a wedding reception hall or a catering hall, he was going to accomplish that by masking it as a wine tasting pavilion. This planning board denied an application before it, in part because it lied on the historic Sound Avenue corridor. The Bating Howell Farm Vineyard at least had the respective process to file a permit and an application to come before the board to talk out in open exactly what was going on. Jay King built a wedding reception hall of 6,600 square feet, almost 600 square feet more than the Bating Howell Farm Vineyard application that was voted down by this board. So I'm just asking on a rational way. If a planning board turns down an application that is duly filed, how can they possibly even consider this application? We have a man and a business owner that has been a serial violator of every covenant that was sworn to, in not every covenant, but a covenant or more in every resolution that was passed before. And now we have a man that has put up a 6,600 wedding reception facility. There's no, there's no theorizing this. You've seen the video. This is what he has done. He's already done it. He hasn't asked for permission. He hasn't filed an application. There was no consideration for the public on discussing the advantage and disadvantage of allowing a catering facility on the historic Sound Avenue corridor. He just did it. And here he is again. So he wants that 6,600 square foot wedding reception hall. And he's already put in a 1,400 foot extension of a patio. And in contemplation of this planning board forgiving this, he's also asked for 36 additional parking spaces to handle the additional traffic contemplated. by running a wedding reception at the same time that he's doing his bar business. It doesn't belong in the historic Sound Avenue corridor, but more importantly, if we allow applicants to just flaunt the rules and have the planning board bless them after the fact, what do we need a planning board for? What do we need a planning board for? I think when you look at this, we have a comprehensive plan right now that's in the vote. We have civic leaders that are on some of those committees. There is no question that the comprehensive plan is going to do everything they can to codify the zoning rules and wording so that there is less discretion when it comes to things as important as historic corridors. So we're hopeful that in a year or so, when the new zoning rules are codified, that there will be less discretion, that there will be businesses that will be tied to the rules, and the planning board will be able to look at that and say, we just can't do it. But for this, we're counting on you. You're the planning board. You were appointed to do this. You were appointed to look at things that were unfair and put in the wrong place, and to rule decisively on it. So a unanimous vote in rejection of this application will send a strong signal to the town and its residents saying that you're here to protect what we have left. It will send a strong signal to potential applicants that are considering doing things and then looking at what has happened in the past. People that did it the right way were turned down, and people that did it the wrong way were approved. What kind of a signal is that sending? So I'll just end with a rhetorical question. Who needs a planning board if business owners can do whatever they want without an application, get caught, ask forgiveness, and get a rubber stamp approval from the board they thumb their noses at in the first place? That's the question that you have to answer with this vote. And this vote, God willing, will be a unanimous no. Thank you.
Sid Bale, Wading River Civic Association, and also I'm on the steering committee for the update of the comp plan. You know, I don't come to too many of these meetings, but like the meetings that I did come in the past where this issue was discussed, there were some really impressive arguments against this illegal, that's what it was, expansion. And you've heard some very fine arguments made by Mr. Foley, and I agree with him 100% because, you know, in 2003, when the last comp plan was done, they talked about preserving the historic character of Sound Avenue, and then you turn around and this becomes the new norm of how you're preserving Sound Avenue. It's totally ridiculous. It would be very, very, very sad. So I would urge you to vote no on this. And before I go, with other resolutions, I have some comments on the Venezia proposal. Should I make that now or should I wait?
Yeah, these are comments on resolution, yeah.
Yes, I can make those then, okay, all right. I'm very familiar with the Venezia project, and it has been around for a very long time, and you're talking about roughly 37,000 square feet of buildings, retail mostly, et cetera. Now, you guys deal with issues, you know, that involve projects are hundreds of thousands of square feet. And when you're talking about inside the fence, you're talking about millions of square feet. But I'll tell you that 37,000 square feet in Wading River is a big deal, you know, to the community. I am very concerned about the possible negative impacts such as the traffic situation and such as even the parcels themselves, the 6 acres, aren't very deep. They're approximately 500 feet. And there are homes behind it. And some of the residents have expressed concerns about, possible, noise, light intrusion, and also there's an issue which was never really resolved about water runoff, disturbance, et cetera. Some of the neighbors in 2015 and 2016, when this application was active, complained, thought that a lot of their water problems were connected with runoff from these 6 acres. I support the 2 resolutions, the one that calls for this being treated as a type 1 action, because I think that is needed. And I support the other resolution that calls for hiring a traffic expert. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I know that the applicant has their own traffic expert, but for an old liberal like me, I'll go to a little Ronald Reagan philosophy here: trust but verify. And I'd like to get another set of expert eyes, on this. Also should point out the Pine Barrens is reviewing this, Pine Barrens Commission, and also there's a state approval needed of any traffic plans. So I think there's a lot more to go on this particular project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Sally Mackin from Fox Hill Community in Baiting Hollow, and I'm here to speak in terms of the opposition that I have to the Riverhead Cider House application 2023-046. As the previous speakers have mentioned, we've been here before. We have heard lots of things before. The planning board now has before it a large task, which is to make some decisions. And what I wanted to do today was simply remind you of the impact that today's vote will have. I'm a resident of Baiting Hollow, right down the road. I pass by the cider house multiple times a week. And having been, at least in some format, a witness to all of this litigation or discussion all of these years, it's just necessary to remind you that the repercussions will last for years of a vote for or against. And the reason is because of the non-conforming status of some of the parts of this application. As the first speaker mentioned, that they're non-conforming. They've been non-conforming. To forgive those non-conforming issues and then allow more, basically interpreting that as a vote of yes, means that each future applicant would have the potential to cite this as precedent, to say, well, the other approvals went through on this Riverhead Cider House, so we should now be allowed to be forgiven for any violations. We should be allowed to have whatever we're applying for. That speaks one way. A vote of no, which is what I'm here to ask for today, a vote of no would ensure the continuation of the quality of life that the designation of the historic corridor of Sound Avenue has provided for me and the hundreds of other residents and people that come and visit and enjoy the North Fork. So I really thank you for the time, and I'm asking you to vote no. As Mike said, unanimously vote no on this resolution for the Cider House expansion. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Claudette Bianco, Baiting Hollow. I'll be very succinct. you need to vote no, because if you don't, it undermines your own authority, and it rewards bad behavior. Thanks.
Hello, Takvi Turchin, Greater Calverton Civic Association. So you've heard from the residents previous to today, and as previous speakers today have mentioned, there are hundreds of people against the expansion of this nonconforming use. I'll be very succinct. How about a modest proposal? Do we need to hire a dedicated code enforcement official exclusively for Mr. King? Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Steve Mandrish. I'm from Dating Hollow. This is my first time. Mandresh. This is my first time attending one of these meetings, and I'm a little nervous. Up until a few years ago, I had no idea what the planning board even did. The last few years, I've been watching the meetings on Zoom, and I have to say I'm very impressed with the job you all do, and especially you, Madam Chairwoman. I'm here to speak about the Riverhead Cider House. I've been there several times. It's really nice, and by all accounts, the owner is a good employer. But that's really irrelevant. All that matters is the law. Did he follow the proper procedures before he did this expansion? And you don't need me to answer that, so please vote no. Thank you.
How are you? Amanda Grams, Reeves Park. Back again.
That's a good thing.
What, babe?
That's a good thing.
I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. I want to thank everybody for trying to save Sound Avenue. I always get emotional. I love Sound Avenue. I want to keep it Sound Avenue. I used to go pumpkin picking, $5 a bag. Used to go up to the trucks, $1 for broccoli. Don't take that away. I told you, he's a catch me if you can, and he's going to do it, and he's going to do it, and he's going to do it. So catch him. Stop him. I wanted to ask you one question. After this resolution, how do you go about enforcing if, in fact, he does continue on with this behavior, and you voted no? Like, does code enforcement go out? Do fines go out? Do you batten up the wall so he can't have the wet? I just want to know if you have any ideas how that goes.
This is a public comment period.
Oh, no answers.
Right.
If I put it in email, can I get a writing back, or is that not allowed?
We kind of just want to hear what you have to say.
I only ask because if in fact, like Tikwa said, we'll be back here every time for other things that go on in his place, and he hasn't been caught yet, and we have to start this all over again. And we're here every time. And Mike is right. We've got Baiting Hollow to stop, and now we have to get him to stop, and it'll be down the line and down the line. I understand people want to make money, but not at the expense of Sound Avenue and all the people that live there, and have it as an agricultural historical corridor. We live here, they don't.
All right, anybody else? All right, let's move on to the resolutions, please.
A motion that we move resolution number 45, Dish 5G at Fresh Pond Avenue, so moved.
I'll second.
Vote, please. Nenaro?
Aye.
O'Day?
Dish.
Yes.
Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski? yes. I would like to have a motion to table resolution number 2023-046, Riverhead Cider House. We do not have a full board here today.
I'll make a motion that we table it.
Second.
Vote, please. Nenaro?
Aye.
Table.
O'Day? O'Day?
Yes.
Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes.
Make a motion that we move resolution number 47 for Venetia Square, type 1 action, so moved.
Second.
Vote, please. Nenaro?
Aye.
O'Day?
Yes.
Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes.
I'll move resolution 2023-48 for Venetia Square to retain L.K. McLean Associates as a traffic consultant. So moved.
Second motion?
Vote, please. Nenaro?
Aye.
O'Day?
Yes.
Nacesky?
Aye, yes.
Woski, yes.
Resolution 49, Lepori Residence, Chapter 219. Resolution to classify an action pursuant to SECRA assume lead agency and issue a negative deck for Chapter 219 coastal erosion. The existing home location, remove the coastal erosion permit application,
I'll
seeking
second.
approval of relocating an existing residence onto a new foundation.
I'll second it.
Vote, please. Nenaro?
Aye.
O'Day?
Yes.
Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes.
Make a motion to move resolution number 51 for Overlook Homes major subdivision, granting an extension of the approval. So moved.
Second it.
Vote, please. Nenaro?
Aye.
O'Day?
Yes.
Nacesky?
Yes.
Woski, yes.
I'll move resolution 2023-51, Overlook Homes major subdivision to grant an extension of the approval period. So moved.
Second motion?
Vote, please. Nenaro?
Aye.
O'Day?
Yes.
Nacesky?
Aye.
Woski, yes. Okay. Public comments on all matters.
Talkie Church and Greater Calverton Civic Association. It was a little disappointing not to get a full no, but I can understand and thank you for tabling this to get your full board. I would like to make a request. 2 o'clock in the afternoon meetings are so very difficult for the residents who care very much about the cider house issue. Is there any way that it could be scheduled for 6 p.m. and we'll come out again? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mike Foley, Reeves Park. I see that the applicant isn't here. Did the applicant know before this meeting that there was not going to be a full board up here and that the motion was going to be tabled?
The applicant does have a representative here today,
Okay.
and nobody knew that.
And he already knew that the,
Nobody knew that.
so this was not a planned absence, something popped up? Okay, well, certainly, it would be nice to get 5 no's rather than 4, and we'll look forward to seeing it, and hopefully, like Takwe said, maybe we can plan this vote for an evening so that more people can come out. I think you know how the community feels, but sometimes a picture in a crowded room is worth more than 1,000 words. Thank you.
I just have a question. I want to be sure, did you move in and vote on Resolution 2350? 2350?
Yes.
Yeah.
They did? Okay.
Oh, I thought you were coming up. Okay. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we move the minutes of the meeting of the Riverhead Planning Board from May 18th, 2023. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Other business, correspondences. The next meeting date is Thursday, July 6th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Thank you all for joining us today. Have a wonderful day.